All right, we are live with a special mailbag edition of the Patriot Nation podcast. Spags, we're here. It's been a while. It's been a while. We haven't been on for a while, but summer is rapidly approaching, and so we got a few things to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. No, we haven't done this since the draft. I've been pretty much enjoying my time off. I haven't
Yep.
looked too much into football, but I think everybody kind of needs that after a long season like that. So
Yep. Yeah, we're ready to go. And you may have noticed, if you're watching on YouTube, you may have noticed that it's a two-man show instead of a three-man show right now. That is because, as some of you probably already know, Keegan has accepted a job with Nesson and is currently killing it over there at
crushing
Nesson.
it.
Just totally crushing it, just busting out.
We're proud of them. We feel like proud fathers.
I literally feel like a proud dad. It's pretty awesome. So he's killing it over there. But his schedule is a little crazy right now, and so probably not going to be on the show. Not officially gone, but it's going to be really difficult for him to make it. So for the majority of the time, he won't be around, but
He'll join us
he'll
whenever he
be.
wants.
He's a Pat's Pulpit guy for life. So whenever he's around, he's coming on the show. So there's that. Also, tomorrow's my last day of school. Pretty exciting.
And then off to Disney.
Off literally. So tomorrow's my last day of school, and then I'm leaving at 6:00 to fly to Disney. So it's pretty awesome. So that's a good way to end the school year. But I've had some good. I had a good year this year. A lot of great kids. Appreciate my D block has gotten our subscribers way up. We started at like 275, and we're over 400 now. Pretty much all because of D block and Teddy specifically. Teddy wants to be our manager, but he's got to wait a few years. Maybe get out of high school first, and then maybe he can be. Because I don't make enough money to have him be my manager. I'd be sending him 10 cents a week or something like that. So but we appreciate all the work they've done, and I had some good kids this year. So it's gonna be it's a little bittersweet them leaving. Some kids are moving on to a different high school. Some kids will stick around, but I won't have them anymore. But at least I'll see them around the hallways. But it's been a good year. But I think we're all ready for summer. So we're ready to go for tomorrow. Half day tomorrow. It's gonna be fun. So all right. With that being said, let's get into mailbag. We had some people submit questions over on Twitter. If you have any questions here, if you're watching and anything comes up, yep. Thank you, Dark Blue Gold. Appreciate it. We're going to be talking about the throwbacks as well. Actually, that's a good thing to bring up. Throwback jerseys are coming back this year. The Twitter video was dope with the DeLorean. That was pretty awesome. They can use them up to 3 times this year. We would assume that they're home games. They are playing again in what's called on Thanksgiving, and I think they wore them last time in Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving, I think. So they wore them in Detroit for Thanksgiving, and I wonder if Detroit wore gold or black, and they wore. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how they do it, but I'm pretty sure when they played on Thanksgiving. So it's a possibility, at least, that they could wear red if Minnesota's going to wear like a black or a purple. It's unlikely, but it's at least a possibility. That would be cool. So, but either way. Best uniforms in football coming back this year for
sure.
Up to 3 games. So we'll see. Brady was pissed. It was great with the Brady tweeted out the liar gif of like, oh come on, that was good. So anyway, so let's get right into it. We'll get right into it. We're gonna start on the most of these questions are offensively. But multiple people here was asking about kind of the Shanahan type offense and what that means as far as what it's going to look like moving forward. Of course, we don't know the answer to that, right? But I do think like the simplification of the offense is going to help a lot. I mean, we've seen, Jared freaking Goff made a Super Bowl, right, in this offense. Like, Matt Ryan won an MVP. Like, Stafford just won the Super Bowl doing it. So, like, this is the type of offense, and this is the new way.
You mean Jimmy Garoppolo, not Goff? Yeah, Garoppolo. Shanahan.
Well, and Goff too, but yes, Jimmy Garoppolo too.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep.
Right. So, and I think was Shanahan on that team, on the Rams team, or had some affiliation with it because they both came from Washington.
Yeah.
So like similar offense, not quite the same thing, but similar offense. But you're right, Jimmy G with Shanahan got there, right? So Matt Ryan obviously MVP. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for Mac Jones and for this offense to make it a little bit more user friendly, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, they threw a lot at him as a rookie. You can only expect a lot more, in year two. And I think everything you hear about him, anything they throw at him, he's able to kind of accomplish and be able to succeed under, right? So we don't even know who's calling plays, who's running the offense. I mean, I would assume you might see something like you see with the defense with Mayo and Belichick. Maybe it's kind of a two-man job, and maybe as the year goes on, Bill kind of lets the leash a little bit longer. But I think Belichick will have a lot to do with the offensive side of the ball, right? Like this is just mini camp, and we haven't seen much from training camp, not even a preseason game. So you don't want to speculate too much, but I think they have the pieces to run that sort of offense. I think it would help them score more points, be more efficient, right? Like you have guys like Kendrick Bourne who can make plays with the ball in his hands. Who knows how they kind of use Tyquan Thornton if he's going to play it much as a rookie. You saw him at minicamp, really thin, kind of frail. Obviously, a crowded wide receiver room. Nelson Aguilar looks to be, here for at least this year, right? Obviously, the big cap hit in the contract, and I think he's really good in that room. I think he's somebody that, although, people are varying opinions on his play, I think he's really good in terms of his veteran leadership and somebody that understands the game well. So long story short, I think they have the pieces to be able to do it, but it's still so early to tell. But I think all you Josh McDaniels haters that used to complain and complain and complain, you're going to see some growing pains, I think, early on with what it's like to not have maybe a bona fide offensive coordinator, somebody that's had success in the league for a really, really long time.
Right.
But with that being said, maybe it was time for a new system and some new voices in there. Who knows?
Yeah. No, I agree. So, and we have a few kind of, and again, like questions kind of melding together here about the Shanahan offense and these young rookie running backs, primarily Pierre Strong, right? Pierre Strong is the guy, had the fastest 40 of the combine for a running back, really showed some explosiveness at South Dakota, but it was South Dakota. The real question is, and the reason why these guys don't typically play as rookies is because they don't have the pass pro, right? They can't do the pass protection at the NFL level. Sony Michel played his rookie year because he had the pass protection in his rookie year, right? He was already at that level. And so I don't know if Pierre Strong is. I've heard he's a willing blocker. They say that he did, his tape looks good, but he was playing in South Dakota. Like the question is you going to be able to do that at the NFL level right away? I don't know if that's the case. And so someone was asking about, which rookies could get redshirted. Obviously, you look at the later round pick guys and you're thinking most of those guys will get redshirted. I think that, the running backs are really, really in strong contention to be those guys, right? Kevin Harris,
well, I think it
Strong.
depends on. I think it depends on how healthy White is. I don't know if he'll be ready for week one.
Right.
And really, the only rookie running backs that really played a significant role under Bill Belichick were, from the top of my head, Maroney and Michelle, both first-round picks.
Right.
So it was kind of, I don't want to say weird, but I think it showed how ahead of schedule Ramondre Stevenson was to come in and play as much as he did as a fourth-round pick. But if you can remember, it did take him some time, right? He fumbled week one. He was a healthy scratch the next few weeks or kind of in and out of the lineup. When White went down, it's, hey, you're in, right? So I think that could be kind of a role where Strong can kind of help them, maybe helps a little bit on special teams. If White's not ready, third down back as a fourth-round rookie might be a lot for him to handle, especially with the pass protection duties that comes with that role. But as far as, the Strong pick goes, Damian Harris is a free agent at the end of the year, right? So is that kind of their, hey, we're reloading with two power backs, guys that can run between the tackles and make things happen at the second level with Stevenson and Strong. But I think this year you're looking at Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, kind of a 60-40 type of split, similar to what you saw last year. I mean, like you said, Bolden is no longer in the question. We saw how they used him in spurts. If Strong is shown he's capable of that, I think that'd be a great role for him as a rookie. But with those two there, it's going to be tough for him to find, meaningful snaps, at least right now, right? So,
right. Yeah, no,
I think that'd be a similar role for him as a rookie, Brandon Bolden type.
Right. And it, makes sense. I mean, like you say, typically the guys that are getting that play are early round guys, right? And so, it's asking a lot to ask Pierre Strong to make a jump from South Dakota and all of a sudden be good at pass protection and be able to get out on routes and catch the ball and everything like that. So I do think that we'll see a lot more from Ramondre Stevenson about that. We did have a few. I'm going to kind of lump another few questions together because we had a question about Ramondre being maybe the lead back this year. And then also someone asked about any big moves that the Patriots might make. And so we can talk about other big moves maybe that we might see. But to me, and I'll kind of start with this one. To me, I think the only situation that you see Ramondre Stevenson maybe getting that lead back role is if, because you mentioned that Damian Harris in the final year of his contract, the Patriots do not typically at least, do not pay running backs. So is there a possibility, and I think that there is, that they move on from Damian Harris if they can get some serious value back for him? Do they trade him before his contract runs out, and then they say, hey, we're okay with Mondre as our number one back and, Pierre Strong as our number two back, let's say, right?
I
Or
think
Kevin
that's
Harris or whatever. I
I
think
think
it's
very, very unlikely. I think the more likely situation would be, hey, we might only have this guy for one more year. Let's run him wild, right? Like,
right.
get the most use out of him you can. But I also think too, I mean, if you maybe were to ask me last year, I would have had a different opinion. But I think they view him as somebody that they want to be here for the foreseeable future. And I think him too.
Yep.
You saw how much he was involved in the community, the other sports, how much he's on NBC Sports Boston on a lot of the pregame for the Bruins and Celtics down the stretch, talking about kind of want to being here and how
Mm-hmm.
special it is to play here, right? I think you could see something like obviously different roles, and he probably demand a little bit more money, but James White, right? Just a running back that whenever he's up for contract, you kind of assume, hey, this guy's going to be back. Like I could see Damian Harris being that type of guy for the foreseeable future, a big part of their culture going forward. And I think that kind of came together over the last year or so, obviously coming off a monster year, but this offseason as well, being heavily involved in the community. I think that's a guy that I'd love for him to stay. I think that's and you don't have to, run him like crazy. You get Ramondre Stevenson behind him and you have Pierre Strong. But I think that running back room will be very interesting to play out, not only this year, but as the year goes on, see how they're using guys, maybe how they value the position going forward.
I tell you what, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know I mentioned that they could theoretically move
Yeah,
on from
right.
him. I just think that, you know, first of all, it's a running back. You're not going to get a ton of value back for that anyways. And so like whatever value you're going to get back I don't see how that could be equal to the value that he's going to have on your football team in the locker room because he seems like a leader out there, and then B on the field, right? Because he scored 15 touchdowns last year. He was dependable. Now he fumbled a few times at big moments. Twice in the red zone. One of them cost him, the game in the first week of the season. But he's a guy that I think that they have grown to really be able to rely on. And I'd be surprised if they moved on from him. And you may be right where they might say, hey, look, man, we want to keep you around long term. Obviously, we got to make the money work, right? But we'd like to keep you around long term and kind of see where that goes. Now, again, does that mean that they're going to necessarily sign him for whatever they want? No, of course. But, that could be a situation where he says, hey, I like it here. I like playing here. No one's going to throw massive money at me. No one's going to throw, Alvin Kamara money at me or Derrick Henry money at me. I might just stay here and yeah, sure, I'll take a little bit of a hometown discount, but so what? I'm happy and I'm getting the ball and I'm playing well and you can kind of go from there. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. So anyway, so there's two other questions we're going to mash together that people asked about what the wide receiver room looks like, and then someone also mentioned, Tyler Lamb mentioned that he likes what the skill position looks like right now, and a lot of people crap on the skill position, but to me, I'm kind of in agreement with him where, yeah, we may not have necessarily a number one guy, but you look at the guys that are there. We have, you get Parker, you got Myers, you get Bourne, you got Aguilar, you got Thornton, you got Wilkerson, Ty Montgomery, even Trey Nixon, who popped in OTAs, who's my guy. Everyone knows he's my guy, right? And so to me, I think that makes sense to me. Where yeah, maybe we don't have a number one guy, but if you got 3 or 4 number twos, it may not be, it's not going to be one of the best wide receiver cores in the league, but like you're going to be able to be competitive at least.
You won 10 games with the group you had last year, and I think you improved mightily. And I think that group last year, I think overachieved, right? Kendrick Bourne had a career year.
Yep.
Jacoby Myers continued to develop into a a solid number two and a good option out of the slot. You went out and you got Devontae Parker and improved your X position, which I think was their biggest, flaw over the last few years, even dating back. Well, they had, Brandon Cooks for a year, but even before that, right? They really never had a true threat outside the numbers. And then you factor in the draft pick of Tyquan Thornton, right? And I think everybody's kind of in agreement now that, hey, this is their guy. But obviously it dates back to draft night, and I love kind of pulling that up, right? Like,
Yeah.
you wanted speed for years, you got the fastest guy, right? And
Right.
if you can't make 4.28 play, you could bring in Justin Jefferson right now, and maybe he doesn't pan out, right? So
Right.
I think it all comes down to the development and the way they use him, and if they can figure out a way to kind of utilize him to his strengths, maybe get the ball into him in space, like shallow crossers, scheme some things up for him, right? Like things we called about for years for Nikhil Harry, right? Put him in a situation to succeed and do that. I think that's the biggest thing to look for him. But the group for a whole, super satisfied. And they have depth, right? Like, in years past, if one of those guys were to go down, right, the offense ran through Julian Edelman and, Gronk was a shell of himself, right? If one of those guys were to go down, I think they have enough pieces, enough versatility to be able to make it work and not really necessarily miss a beat from a week to week standpoint. So,
yeah, no, I agree. Couldn't agree more, and that's the thing with me and the Thornton thing. Listen, I wrote about it a few weeks ago. Like they've failed at that position multiple times, over and over and over and over again. And they had an opportunity where they saw it coming off the board, they saw things happening, but at the end of the day, right, they chose the wrong guy. And that's happened. And you're gonna have to live with that, right? But like at some point, either you trust Bill or you don't, right? Like he saw it coming. We've talked about this, multiple times, but you saw it coming. They read the draft exactly right. They read it exactly right. They knew what run of wide receivers were coming. They traded in front of it. They drafted the guy they wanted. Did they draft the right guy? We don't know. But like, either you trust them or you don't. Like at a certain point, it's like I wanted George Pickens too. I was calling for George Pickens at 29, right? Like they had him at 50 and they didn't draft him, but they got the guy that they wanted. And so, as far as I'm concerned, right now, let's trust them, and then hopefully it isn't a bust like the other ones have been, and we'll see what happens. So. All right, let's flip over to the defense side of the ball. We get at Sugar Ricky is asking, which off-ball linebackers do you see the Patriots going with once the regular season starts? Of course, fraught with off-ball linebackers, most of them young, all of them inexperienced. We've only really watched one guy play off-ball linebacker on the Patriots roster right now, and that is Juwan Bentley. So there's a lot of question marks, but who do you think are going to be the guys to be playing the most once the season starts?
Yeah, I mean, Josh Uche got a lot of buzz from both Bill Belichick and Steven Belichick. I think that's a guy that they look to being a big part of their defense this year. I think that's a guy that, battled some injuries early on. Obviously, last year they brought back Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, Hightower was in the mix. I know he typically plays in the middle, but somebody that was kind of buried on a depth chart. I think that's a guy that this year should have a big role, right? It all depends on camp and who pops. I really like Cameron McGrone. I've been beating that drum for 2 years. I think that's a player that can really help them.
Yep.
And Rayquan Mcmillan as well. We saw him play a little bit in the middle in last training camp in the very limited time we saw him. I think he tore his ACL on the first week, even before pads. So they got a good mix of guys. It's kind of, I think that's the biggest question mark. I think on paper and from what we've seen in limited looks and snaps, it looks okay. But I think that's a group that what used to be a real strength of New England's defense will have a lot of new faces and a lot of moving pieces. But I think they got more athletic. Obviously, Hightower he's unsigned. Who knows about his future, kind of what holds there. I'm sure if he had a spot here or, if they came calling, he'd come play. I don't know what the whole deal is there. But Bentley, I think maybe shift into the middle. We saw him do that the year Hightower opted out. And then, like I said, guys like McMillan, Uche, even Ronnie Perkins, who knows if he's kind of coming off the edge or they'll use him in a little bit more of an off-ball role. So I think they have the youth and the athleticism. It's just now, can these guys go out there and kind of prove their worth and show the hype that they were given, coming out of school and, coming into year two for like a guy like McMillan. So
yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's where you're at right now. A lot of question marks, right? We don't know how any of these guys are going to be, but we're talking about getting faster and getting more athletic. That's what we're talking about. That's where the league's headed. Well, if that's where the league's headed, that's what you want. You got Rayquan Mcmillan, you got Cam McGrone, you got Josh Uche. You're talking about, like faster, more athletic. That's what you're talking about. That's what you got. Right? Now, again, we haven't seen those guys play. So it's a huge question mark. But I mean, that's what we asked. That's what we're asking for. That's what we're getting. Right. And so at a certain point, again, it just looks like let's see what happens. But I'm excited about it. I'm nervous about it, but I'm also excited about it. And so we'll see what happens there. All right. One question about Nikhil Harry. We're just going to skip over the Nikhil Harry question. Nikhil Harry will not be on the team this year. I will put that down in Sharpie. Nikhil Harry will not be on the team this year. It just doesn't make sense. They get too many wide receivers unless they get the training camp with them and someone goes down with an injury, which at this point, they might just be waiting for training camp and just say, screw it. Someone's going to go down with an injury, or someone on the Patriots will go down with an injury, or someone else will go down with an injury, and they'll be able to move him for something, right? So that's kind of where I look at it. Like, we're going to cut this guy. Hey, you're going to cut that guy. Let's just flip these two guys, right? I would expect something like that to happen. We'll see, but that's what I assume is going to happen with him. The last question that we'll get to here is about Cole Strange. Yeah, no, where'd they make cap room? That's where they're going to get it from. Is Nikhil Harry, a few other guys. They'll move some money around. But
maybe last Matthew Judon restructure or something like that.
Right.
That'll be in the works.
Exactly. The last question we had was about the roster construction, and there were two guys in particular that people were asking if they'll make the 53, and that is Brian Hoyer and Jake Bailey. Now, Jake Bailey, again, going into the final year of his contract. Brian Hoyer is Brian Hoyer. He's 96 years old. Like, he's younger than Brady still, but nevertheless,
I think in terms of Bailey, yes, and that's some way you can create some cap room. I'm not a cap guru, but just kind of looking at the roster, a Jake Bailey extension can kind of lower that cap hit, right? You can move some money around. I think that's they didn't address the punting position. I know they brought in an undrafted free agent who was there in OTAs. I'm sure he'll be there kind of as a camp body, but that's his position. Yep. Everybody was kind of down on his play after, a Pro Bowl season the year before. I think he battled that knee injury. So keep an eye on an extension for Bailey coming through. That can certainly open up some cap room. And as far as Hoyer goes, they brought him back, right? So that's a guy that, right, max in year 2, you got a Bailey Zappi as a 4th-round pick as a rookie. He's still learning, right? You kind of still need a veteran presence in that room. Obviously there's some gymnastics you can do with, like, if he gets cut, he doesn't have to go through waivers, and they can make things work at cut down day in terms of like IRing guys and creating space, right? So yeah, maybe he gets cut like he did training camp last year and re-signed, but I think that's a guy that you keep on, and maybe he doesn't dress every game, but he's certainly there in terms of a mentoring role. I know maybe it depends on how far Mac is advanced, but I think with a lot of new faces on offense in terms of the coaching staff, it'd be good to have some familiarity with Hoyer being there and somebody that's kind of seen it from all different angles at multiple different spots. So I would say yes to Brian Hoyer, and for Bailey, yes. And I think an extension should be coming.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, Zappi's a guy I wouldn't be surprised to see Hoyer dress every week, because, and the biggest reason for me is because if you have Hoyer, God forbid something happens to Mac, right? Something has to come in. He gets hurt for, a series has to come up. Do you want Bailey Zappi going in? I just, to me, I look at it and say, well, Hoyer is the backup, right? And Zappi's the 3rd string guy.
Yeah.
And so Zappi kind of,
in a mid-game, Brian Hoyer, but I think if you had a week or a few weeks to prepare, you probably not to Zappi just because of the talent, right?
100%. And that's, so for me, it's like on game day, Hoyer should probably be the backup. Now, there is a possibility now, because like you mentioned, you can cut Hoyer. He can end up on the practice squad. You could put him on the practice squad, which you could do. Right now, are they going to want to do? They might want to do that. They might be impressed with Zappi during the training camp. They might say, hey, look.
I mean, Stidham did it 3 years ago. Similar situation when he was a 4th-round rookie, beat out Hoyer, and he ended up getting signed by Indy and actually played a little bit that year. Obviously, different situations. Right?
Of course, right. But yes. Right. Same idea, right? Where you could cut Hoyer and say, listen, stay on the practice squad. We want you still here, but we're just going to put you on the practice squad so we can save a roster spot. We'll pay you whatever you want, but we're just going to put you on the practice squad to kind of keep that going. So I think I think in reality, that's the only way that Hoyer doesn't make the 53. I think it makes sense for Hoyer to make the 53. Maybe he doesn't simply because he's on the practice squad, but I expect Hoyer to be in New England this year, one way or the other. So we'll see. But that's all we got. It seems like the chat's quiet with that. We got a few Mr. Lane shout outs. Appreciate my my kids over there. So thank you for that. And that's it. So I think yeah, I was gonna say I think we'll probably be off until training camp again. Certainly won't do one next week, and maybe we'll do one the week before training camp. Although I might be away that week too. So I got a few vacations coming up. But nevertheless, we'll be back certainly around training camp. We appreciate you guys coming through. Thank you, and we'll talk to you soon.